Hello, friends. Welcome to Akulmach Live. And as you know, that today the budget is being presented, and therefore I thought this is the right opportunity to talk about five things that I personally believe, as a common man, as a common citizen of India, that this budget must have. And before we begin, my name is Chandrakant, and this is a live stream across all social media platforms. If you want to join me live and debate with me on this subject, you can. All lines are open. The process of joining me live is described in the description below. All right. The first point that I want to talk about today on the budget day. Today is the first day of the budget when the finance minister is presenting the budget in the parliament. So a lot of speculation. Everybody will have different requirements, different feelings, and also different expectations. So I will tell you about my expectations. Well, these expectations are from the India perspective, not from my personal desires. I'm just thinking holistically what is expected from this budget and what are the main items. And therefore the first main item, as far as I'm concerned, is formalizing the informal workforce. Why I'm making this point? Simply because that there are a lot of informal or contract works which are happening today across India. So there has to be some regulation around it, and there has to be some formalization. So I'm not saying that make a very strict guidelines, because people will start then saying that okay, they made my income generation to be very difficult by the government. So I'm not saying that. I'm only saying that define these codes for various kinds of services, so that the services which are being offered by India's skilled professionals, they can be codified and they can be provided as a service to overseas clients as per the UNESCO guidelines, as per the UNESCO codification, UNESCO classification. So once these informal workforce is also classified, then truly the informal workforce will become a global entity. So I'm thinking that the new budget will address this in some form, at least table it in the parliament so that it can be discussed among all the member of parliament, and sort of formalize the informal sector, especially these people are deployed in providing various kinds of services. So that is my first expectation from this budget, especially in 2024, because we have a difficult season going on. Inflation is very high. At the same time, a lot of things are happening. So I think, in my point of view, this is something that I expect. Do let me know what is your opinion. So I'll go to all my points, 5 points, one by one. This is the first one. Let's move on to the next one. That is with regard to the electric vehicle. Electric vehicles are being promoted, being propagated. However, they are not catching up. They are not catching on. And therefore, there has to be some regulation, especially the government of India has to do walk the talk. They have to look at how they can make regulations or some sort of framework to adapt the electric vehicle in their own infrastructure. So, for example, their own vehicles, which by and large, most of the government vehicles you see today are electric, especially in the metro areas. I think it depends on the charge ability to charge, ability to travel, and therefore, if there is a political convoy going, then very little chance will be there that the convoy will have electric vehicle, because electric vehicles can run out of juice anytime. So I don't think they would like to take the chance. But however, this is one important point, that they should think how they can adapt the electric vehicle. Also, for the public transport, they have to make it mandatory for the freight trains or some sort of commuter trains to be electrified, because if there are trains, especially the freight trains, they are very, very long, and they haul a lot of luggage, lot of material across the length and breadth of India, and they also go on certain tracks which are not electrified. So because of that, these freight trains, they have to use the locomotive, which are diesel locomotives. So the government has to look at some sort of framework to popularize electric vehicles so that it can be adopted by masses. Right now, electric vehicles are very, very expensive, and also people are saying that the electric vehicle are good for the environment, but the process of manufacturing electric vehicles and their battery are very polluting. So net electric vehicle industry, if it comes up, it will create more havoc for the nature. So I think the government has to come up with some sort of framework how they will actually balance the two, how they will be able to create a good climate friendly, environment friendly electric vehicle framework. So that is my second point, which I expect personally from the budget which is being presented in the parliament today. Next point is about the startup. And as you know that India is a major startup hub. It has become. There are other startup hubs also, mostly in Israel, also in China, and northwest of United States, which are very startup friendly places. And of course, how can we forget Silicon Valley of India as well as California? So there are certain startups, uh, hot centers across the world, and India being one of them. So the government of India expectation from this budget is to create a ecosystem for startup, for easy funding, for easy market, and also to set up things like when they create a organization, they should be able to hire people without worrying too much about taxes, etc. So there has to be some sort of facility given to the startup so that startup can compete, and they will have some sort of a tax break, so that when the company is starting up, they will not have a lot of cash flow. So if they have the tax break, then they can sustain for longer time. So if there is a tax break for the startup, they will get a lot of incentives to create the idea, to fructify the idea using which they are starting the company. So I think this budget must talk about startups. What is that they are doing for lot of entrepreneurs who are actually becoming an entrepreneur today, becoming new leaders and CEOs. What is that they should look at, and therefore this budget must address this. By the way, if this budget has all these things incorporated, every citizen of the country will be benefited, and therefore a CEO can come from anywhere, and therefore if you have a framework which is defined by the finance ministry, then this new leader and the new CEO will be able to use that new framework. So startup support, much more aggressive startup support, much more aggressive financial support, also some sort of money in the pocket. I think that is the way to put it. If you have money in your pocket longer and you don't have to pay taxes, then it will be very attractive for you. So moving ahead to the fourth point, and that is again coming to income tax reforms. This is a point which is very, very highly desirable. You see, what is happening is that if you look at condition of India, you actually pay, and India is not unique. Wherever there are taxes, this is the middle class basically end up doing that. So if you're having X income, and if you know that your income tax payout is like 30%, but if you calculate, you will actually end up spending more than 60%, because when you buy commodities, because 30% has been already deducted from your salary. After paying the income tax, you get your salary, and after that, once you get the money in bank, you start going into the market, and then you have to pay the GST or whatever tax which is applicable. So that usually is about 18 to 28%. So you do the math. Basically, if you're buying a mobile phone or a expensive item which is considered as a luxury, you may end up basically paying nearly 60% to the government in some form or the other, in terms of income tax, also in terms of sales tax or GST as we know it today. So I think it's very highly desirable. I think the way the tax needs to be calculated. I think it must undergo tremendous change, and that is why I'm using this word called reform, because income tax is not merely based on the percentages or percentile, whatever it is. So it has to be a different method of tax collection. Maybe when the digital transactions are going up, maybe you want to tax the digital transactions and not uh, charge the income tax. So something like that. I'm not sure what could be the reform, but the tax relief must be given and the old method must be thrown out of the window. That is my expectation as a common Indian citizen, that the tax liability is huge for Indian citizens, especially if you are in the middle income group. If you are a high income group, then anyway you don't bother about taxes because you can offload all the expenses uh, on the on the company. And if you are a low income, if you are from the low income group, then anyway you don't pay any taxes. So most of the burden of income tax falls onto the middle income group. So considering this is a fact, tax reforms are very much needed. Let's move on to the next point, and that is the skill development and the education. What is happening is the education is very expensive, extremely expensive, and normal school, and most of the education is kind of regulated. And For example, if there is a university which is basically regulated by UGC, and if it's a school, it is regulated by NCERT. So there are two regulators who are basically saying that if you're studying in this system, NCERT system, the people who are following the NCERT as a school, then they are implementing the NCERT framework. And similarly, if you are actually in the university, you have to follow the UGC framework, which is prescribed what kind of books, how many classes you will attend, etc. So it's very rigid on one side. You need to follow the government regulation. On the other side, there is no elbow room given to the businesses. So if you want to do some education, you will have to go through the grind, you have to go through the licenses and all that. So education is still not out of the licenses, and it takes a lot of time to establish schools and university. As a result, the cost of education is extremely high in India, even though it is a right, it's a fundamental right, but it is so expensive that it is very difficult for people to get the quality education. So I think even though government a couple of years back said that the NCERT course is sort of standardized, however, on ground reality is different. I mean, you may have standardized it, but the schools, because they have gone through the grind of taking licenses and starting the school, their expense they want to recover from the parent. And therefore, even though the government on other side has said that NCERT course is available absolutely free on the internet, but then in reality on ground, this is not going to help you as a parent. So therefore, the education has to be reformed again. I'm not using this word because education is quite expensive. The other second issue about education is that if you are pass out today, you are not carrying those skills which are needed today by the industry. So you are, because the education institutions are following the NCERT guidelines, they cannot start a course without taking permission from the regulator. So because of this, the schools are not moving fast enough with the industry. Industry is changing very rapidly, but the education institutes are not launching new products, new services, new course material. And as a result, they are just giving the passing certificates, degrees, diploma. But those degrees, diploma, people carrying those documents are not having the skills which are required today. So I think the budget expectation is that they should, address these issues, because education is very expensive. They must look at the constitutional right, which is the fundamental right of education for everyone. But then, how do you, marry the two? in reality, the institutes are only bound by the regulator, whereas on the other side, for public, it is a fundamental right. So it's not gelling. Something has to be done, and that is my expectation as a common Indian citizen, that this budget must provide. And I'm sure everybody has different expectations. I'm not saying free loans and those kind of things. I'm not saying. However, there are electorate pressures also on the government. So let's see if the government of India is able to balance between what they had promised to the electorates during the general elections, and what is good for overall country. So with this, I will end my live stream, and I look forward to receiving your comments. Thank you so much.